Ravens flock. I hope everybody's having a good holiday season. So one thing I've been very critical over the past couple years is Eric DeCosta. However, recently I've been giving him a lot of props. Going back to the off season, I was giving him a lot of props because a lot of his draft picks have been aging well, whether it's Justin Madubuike, Patrick Queen, Kyle Hamilton, or Isaiah Likely. Like these guys have been hits. In the case of Isaiah Likely, that's who this video is going to be about. Obviously, we all see how electrifying he is. He's very nimble. He's quick in short space. He's acrobatic, and he's pretty fast for a tight end, which makes sense because he used to play receiver, but obviously switched to tight end. So he clearly still has a lot of that receiver talent in him, but just he chooses to just play a different position. So far, obviously we drafted him last year, but so far since we drafted him in the past 2 years, he's had two opportunities to kind of show what he's got. Last year, during that 2 or 3 game stretch where Mark was sitting out, and then this year, towards the end of this year, because Mark obviously has been sitting out, and he has made a lasting impression on people. He showed people that he's very electrifying and has a very high ceiling. Like in the game Isaiah has played since Mark Andrews got hurt, he's caught 14 of 19 targets, has 193 yards and 2 touchdowns. So right now he's averaging 4.6 catches a game and 64 yards a game since Mark went out. Now this is obviously very exciting, but the downside is, people are very fickle, and people, just as quick as people will hype you up, they'll turn around and try to tear you down. So I'm watching people literally turn their backs on Mark Andrews. Not too many people. I'm I don't want to hype it up like it's everybody, but it's an it's enough people to where it starts to become a little noticeable. I'm seeing people in different like comment sections on social media saying that there's a tight end controversy, which to me doesn't really make sense because it makes sense when you say like a QB controversy because really there can only be one quarterback out there unless they're running like some like trick play, but otherwise like you're really only gonna have one quarterback out there. But in the case of a tight end, you could absolutely have multiple tight ends who are good playing playing on the same team. Like we don't have to pick one and just keep the other. That doesn't make sense. We could, like, in my opinion, I think Isaiah Likely really complements Mark Andrews very well. Like, I really do. Like, I saw a comment on, I don't know if it was like a Rich Eisen video or something. It was somebody's video, but I saw a comment that I thought really summarized how I was feeling about this, really, where the person basically said, there's no need to throw one under the bus to keep the other one. We could keep them both. It's basically like having Rob Gronkowski and Kyle Pitts on the same team. And I thought that pretty much perfectly summed up the situation. Now, granted, Mark is faster than is faster and more athletic than Rob Gronkowski, in my opinion, but it still was, in my opinion, a perfect comparison. I don't think this is a I don't think this is a Mark Andrews Hayden Hurst situation, honestly, because Mark Andrews was just way better than Hayden Hurst, and I just simply don't think they're gonna be as quick to let Mark go as they were with Hayden Hurst. I'm seeing people say that Isaiah has better hands than Mark, which I completely disagree with. Like they both have good hands, but they both have also had drops. Like even though I obviously because we've more recently seen Isaiah Likely make like big time catches, when we can't forget about like games like a few weeks earlier in the year back when we played the Browns where Mark made that crazy catch in the corner of the end zone over like two different defenders. Like you can't pretend like Mark has suspect hands. I think as far as hands is concerned, they're both on the same level. But as far as like where I think Isaiah has an edge on Mark, like I said earlier, Isaiah is more nimble than Mark, and he's also clearly faster than Mark. Now, Mark is still fast in his own right, but like, and I think the best example of that was the playoff game a few months ago where he almost single-handedly chased down Chase Hubbard on that 99-yard touchdown fumble return for a touchdown before he got blocked in the back. And that's to me that was the fastest I ever seen Mark move. So he's definitely faster than he gets credit for. But at this point, I think it's safe to say he's not faster than Isaiah. But at the same time, Mark is, in my opinion at least, Mark is a much more complete tight end than Isaiah Likely. Like Mark is a better route runner. I think their hands are pretty much at the same level, but at the same time, Mark, like I said, is a better route runner and he also is a better blocker. Now, Isaiah Likely has shown that he could have some potential to be a better blocker in the future, but I just don't think he's that good of a blocker right now. But I think a good example of how good he could be as a blocker came in that Rams game where there was that one play where he pancaked somebody and then just went out and caught like a 2 yard pass and took it for like another like 8 or 9 yards. So, but as of right now, he hasn't shown consistency as a blocker, in my opinion. But Mark also wasn't that good of a blocker either when he first came out. Like but he spent a lot of time working with Nick Boyle to improve his blocking. So who knows? Maybe Isaiah can take that same time and practice either with Mark or with Pat Ricard. We also got to remember that when Todd Monken was the head coach at Georgia and when he was designing that offense, two of the main players that he kept featuring the most, or two of like some of their most featured players were their tight ends. Like so, he's again Todd Monken is very versatile. So I have no doubt that in the future we're gonna see more sets where we have two tight ends out there at the same time. Because again, I think that Mark and Isaiah they complement each other so well. And when you look at what Todd Monken did in Georgia with Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers, one of those two tight ends in Darnell Washington, he didn't even have a good reputation for having good hands, and they still were able to dominate the way they did. And I believe that in the case of Mark and Isaiah, you're talking about a much higher level of talent. So I definitely think Ravens fans should be excited about that. As far as where we go next year, I think it's going to be even more interesting to see kind of how they grow together, especially because I think there's going to be more opportunities next year. Because even though Odell has like voidable years on his contract, I don't think they're bringing him back. I don't think they're bringing Nelson Aguilar back. I think when it comes to receiver, they're gonna try to go really young and just pick up some undrafted guys or some later round picks and again we still have Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman on rookie deals. I think those are gonna be areas where they're gonna try to go young because of the fact that obviously we just paid Lamar. They're gonna try to pay Matabike. They're gonna try to pay Patrick Queen. Now, even though they're not gonna be able to pay everybody, they're gonna try to keep as much of these guys as possible. And I do think that as far as receivers concerned, they're probably gonna go young and and even though people talk about leaning on tight ends a lot as if it's a bad thing, when you have tight ends at this level, it really doesn't make much of a difference. So I'm still interested to see kind of how this plays out over the next couple of years because I think this could be special, low key. Like you're talking about possibly two elite tight ends on the same team, and at that point, especially if we have receivers on the outside who can win, like Zay Flowers and Rashad, all of a sudden you're talking about a very underrated offense. So again, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below.